This is Sam Long.
I'm John Nugent.
And I am Ron Peters.
Welcome to the After Class Podcast.
Because the best conversations happen
After class.
Thanks for joining us in this episode of the After Class Podcast. We're glad to have you along. So we interrupt this regularly scheduled program, which if you came expecting to hear more from 1 Peter, you are sorely going to be disappointed, or you may like this better. We thought it appropriate to interject with a hot take. So this episode, we're going to be talking about the government shutdown. No,
Oh,
that is not,
I thought that's what we were
that's
talking
not,
about.
no. We try not to do things like that very often. Instead, there has been a program that has been released through YouTube and through a website that is completing its first season. And we were sort of drawn to it, and we thought we'd talk about it in this episode. And that show is called...
Oh.
The Promised Land.
The Promised Land. I remember actually they put out their pilot like a year ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I thought, oh, this is cool. And then I kind of forgot about it because they didn't put anything else out until, was it October? They put out an episode a week.
I think it was October 1st they dropped the first episode.
And here we are at the end of October. I know you aren't listening to this. It's a couple weeks after that. But they, by now, will have released 6 episodes, which will constitute the first season.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
And, so we thought we'd talk about it.
Yeah, the first season is in, and some of you may have been watching it already, and some of you maybe, even hopefully, you're hearing about it for the first time. We want people to hear about it because it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
I agree.
Because, like I said, we're always on the lookout for ways in which people adapt the Bible story in different ways. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good.
Not everything we reviewed has been has been gold.
And so, like, we talked about The Chosen, and we talked about the House of David, and we did individual movies like Night with the King and Samson and things like that. And so we just like to interact with it because, we're bringing our knowledge of the Bible and understanding of the Bible to see what Hollywood or an offshoot of Hollywood might do.
Yeah, so this is a 6-episode series, and hopefully it's not the end.
I hope
it
not.
seems like there's a lot more story to be told.
Right.
And what's unique about it, I mean, some of the summaries I see about it, it's like retells the Exodus, but that doesn't quite get it. It really starts out, the storyline of this series starts out after the Exodus has already happened. The Israelites have already passed through the Red Sea. It starts out really when they're in a battle with the Amalekites.
Yeah.
It's really how it starts.
Yeah,
And
it's like Exodus chapter 16. That's where it really begins.
Yeah, and then it carries, and really the storyline is that dysfunctional generation in the wilderness under the leadership of Moses and Aaron and Miriam.
Underlying dysfunctional.
Yeah, and it's in the style of the comedy of The Office, where you have these like interviews with individuals on the side because there's like a film crew around kind of watching them. So it pauses, and it's a total ripoff of The Office, but it does it so well.
Yeah.
It really does.
And not like there haven't been other ripoffs of The Office.
Correct. Yeah, I say it puts the fun in dysfunctional.
Well, and even The Office, that's not where it began. I go back to the 80s. This is Spinal Tap. Like that was the first movie that was the mockumentary, and it was done in that documentary style. And since then, people have tried to do it. I think The Office it was the first TV show to really embrace that and do it well. And so people are right to say, hey, how can we emulate that? And there's been spinoffs from The Office. I haven't watched them myself, but these people said, how can we take that format and do something with the Bible? And so you got to go in knowing that it's deliberately meant to be hilarious. Okay, this is not an exact representation of what the Exodus story looked like, but this is a comedy, and it's a mockumentary comedy, and I think it's a great choice on the part of these producers.
Yeah. And no streaming service has picked it up yet that I know of. You can access it through YouTube. If you just go to YouTube and search for it, you can find the videos, and you'll probably get a lot of commercials. But if you go to the website, which I've preserved for you here, https://thepromisedlandseries.tv. If you go to that website,
PromisedLandSeries.tv is the key thing.
Yeah, then, and you click on access the first season and you start listening, you get it without commercial interruption. So I recommend the latter, but I don't know if you want to support them financially and you can tolerate the commercials, maybe YouTube. they make some more money the other way.
I will say we watched it on YouTube through our TV, and there were 2 sets of commercials, and they were less than a minute each.
They were really short.
So it
And you
wasn't,
could
it wasn't that
skip 'em
bad.
at one
Yes,
point,
eventually you can skip.
It wasn't that big of a deal.
So maybe at some point they'll be picked up by a streaming
That'd be great.
service. But to me, it's just because they're not on a major streaming service doesn't mean it's not done extremely well. I feel like this is done remarkably well.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think the production values are pretty high for a YouTube TV show. Or I'm sorry, a TV show being released on YouTube. Like
Yes.
YouTube didn't produce it.
So the writer-director is Mitch Hudson, which not really a household name, but he did serve as an assistant with The Chosen.
Mm-hmm.
So he did a lot of work with a lot of the background actors, right? And so he has some major film experience. Him and his wife own Big Dog Pictures.
Love Big Dog Pictures. I don't know.
But this film is brought to us. I don't know who's the what anymore.
Yes.
I went to a movie with some friends, and there were like 7 different studios, one after another, that were introduced as being involved in this film. But we also have Milk and Honey, or just Milk Honey Studios is involved, and the producer is Richie Johns, the co-owner of Studio 523. I don't know if you know any of these companies. I didn't know any of
do
these
not.
companies.
I don't either.
But they're not the major ones.
Right.
But they do not suffer because they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because really, it's driven by the storyline and the actors. So, you talk about like it's not high value exactly. It's just in the middle of a desert and they're wearing skirts. No, like they're wearing like the costuming and all the rest. But it's not like there's a bunch of special effects or anything. And so really, it lies on the back of the actors and actresses and the storyline, and it can because that part is really good.
Yeah. One special effect that stuck out to me, though, I think it's in the third
That's the
episode,
one.
was when God comes down on the mountain. Like they have, a
Oh, yeah.
storm up on Mount Sinai, and I'm like, oh, so they put a little money into that one, and it wasn't too shabby. So, but I think you're right, Sam. It's mostly it looks like it's low budget, but not low budget in a negative
Right.
way. You just don't need a lot of money to have people in the desert living in tents, dressed as ancient Israelites, and so it doesn't look like it's low budget. They just benefit from the fact that we don't need a lot of money to tell this story.
Yeah, the special effect that stands out to me is Moses' glowing face.
That's what I was going to say too. Which is it's subtle.
It's not over the top
Yeah.
glow. It is very subtle. It's like, is it glowing, or is it just a weird film angle? Yep, it's kind of a subtle glow. Apparently, too much for the people.
There's a whole episode about that, which is pretty.
Well,
Fun.
it didn't ruin the camera, evidently. So
Yeah.
No, it did not.
So their purpose, just to get a little more back, of history of where it came from. The purpose of the people who produce this is to bring to life the humanity of the people in the Bible story,
Done.
which is, from their perspective, and I think we would agree, which is part of the Bible story itself.
Yeah.
These are not, these people are not portrayed in Exodus and Numbers, right, as like these perfect characters.
paragons of virtue.
No, they are complex people. They get in trouble with God. And they get judged by God, and they are complex people, and they really bring out the complexity by giving, what happens in between the things that the Bible talks about. Right. So how would you characterize the connection, the strength of the connection between the content of this series and what's in the Bible itself? How would you describe that relationship?
Creative license on one hand, but it's the sort of thing where like, what else were they doing out there? Like they're like I said, these times between there's significant events that are recorded in the biblical story, but what happens between those times? And so it's a sort of thing where like I could see that possibly being a thing, and they bring out character relationships and how those work out. And so I don't know how I'd characterize it other than like a guess at the downtime of Israel that's between the lines of the Bible.
I think that if you know the story, each episode you're going to go, yeah, I remember when that happened. So like the second episode is when Moses assigns responsibilities to the elders of Israel. You're over 1,000, you're over 100, you're over 50, you're over 10. We know that story. That's his father-in-law is like, you're working too hard. You need some help here. And so that's kind of the main sort of arc of that episode. But the question I think they're asking is, how did this look on the ground?
Yes.
And like, what if you're Korah and you're like, man, I'm going to get 100 people. This is going to be great. Korah, so glad to see you. You get 10. He's like so crestfallen. And then he's given like the worst 10. And what do you do if the 10 you're given are a bunch of idiots? And so that's where the humor comes in. And it's things like that. What if you're Joshua and your job is to make sure that nobody goes up the mountain? And so Joshua's job, guard the mountain. And again, just kind of the ridiculous but hilarious scenarios that come out of that. These are great questions, and I love the way that they're asking, how would this really look? And it's somewhat anachronistic, to say the least. A lot of the jokes are more 21st century American type jokes, but some of it is like, oh, yeah, I guess I never thought, what would that look like, 3,000 years ago?
Yeah, I would agree. I think they follow the Bible storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not they're not veering off in the
Right.
way that maybe the Noah movie with
Sure.
Russell Crowe, like where you have the Ents showing up
Yeah.
as the Watchers. Like it just veers off. But I feel like they're sticking pretty close to the storyline
Right.
of the Bible. They're just inserting things in between and giving more backstory and character development as they tell the Bible story. So I think it's one of the closer tellings, frankly, as far as sticking to the script, although not in the visual Bible where the text is only the identical text to what's in the Bible. They're sure adding a lot, but in ways that feel like it's still telling the Bible story and non-offensive. And I have to tell you, I think I laughed through most of the thing.
I agree.
Laughed out loud multiple times. I am not a repeat watcher. Like, I don't go to the same movie twice. It's really got to be special for me to watch anything twice. I've watched all of these 2 or 3 times
That's
because
impressive.
they make me laugh. And I catch things the second time through that I maybe didn't catch fully the first time through. So, huge fan.
Yeah, I think you're right. Despite the embellishing, they occasionally throw in a quote right from the text, like not but enough like, oh yeah, and I know what they're talking about, and so they're just adding flesh to it, and I think what they said about humanizing the characters, which is exactly right, because we have this very flat view of the characters, and this allows them the ability to say, what if they were like that? Kind of like, not, this is a bit a stretch, but like when they made like Matthew kind of had some sort of autism and this,
right,
like
yeah.
the chosen, like maybe, I mean, doubtful, but like what would it be like if that were the case?
Sure, right.
And so you just kind of get a different perspective on the character, like, oh, maybe they weren't this perfect model of this or have this personality. Maybe they were this other thing. I think, I don't know if we can get too far into it, but can I give an example?
Yeah,
My
please.
favorite example is Caleb.
yes.
When you hear Caleb, like, oh, he's the guy who stood up for God and said, no, we'll go and we'll beat those giants. It'll be great. That's what we think of. In this show, he is like a troublemaker and he's messing with people and like
He's
it's
snarky and sarcastic.
yeah. And you get the impression, oh, he's going to grow into it probably at some point. But as it starts, he's the one messing with Joshua.
Right.
Like
playing
no, I'm going
soccer.
up the mountain. Like, no, I got to get my ball. Like, this it's just great. We're like, oh, I never would have considered Caleb to be that character. But now they've done, like, oh, why not? That tracks.
Yeah. On that point, like the character that I've liked so far, I like them all. This is not
The characters are very endearing.
there are, but like with Aaron, in the text, Aaron's a better speaker. Moses is like, oh, I can't speak, I stutter, whatever. And so God's like, fine, Aaron will speak for you. So what they do is they take that, like, so if Moses is talking in front of a group of people, they're just all like, checking their watches, looking at the sky. Then Aaron gets up there and he starts like riffing, he's telling jokes.
Does some stand-up comedy bits.
Exactly.
Works the crowd.
And
Yeah.
everybody's laughing, and he's just got him. And Moses is all depressed. He's like, "Oh, Aaron's such a better speaker." But it's so funny to see them flesh him out as this guy who just can play the crowd. Hey, how's everybody doing today? I can't hear you. And he's like, almost like, getting them worked up. And it's just a great way to think about Aaron's personality. Again, probably not, same as, Matthew was probably not autistic, but it's a funny way to think about how a person who has that kind of charisma that the Bible does describe, how that might play out, in a group setting. And I was just watching that going, oh, in a way it's so like, probably not Aaron, but it's so funny. like you said, those laugh out loud
Yeah,
moments.
and he's not a flat character that's always like funny doing stand up. I mean, he's a sensitive guy, and he actually loses the crowd for a
Yep.
while,
Yeah.
which is part of how they tell the backstory of the Golden Calf incident. How the crowd kind of how did he go from Aaron, the faithful sidekick of Moses, to making a golden calf and leading all of Israel into idolatry? They give an account of that. And so he ends up being a complex character who makes a huge mistake, and that causes tension between him and Moses. And now they have to work out their relationship because of the tension that is caused. So, yeah, there's funny things, but there's also like real life drama. Like there are like tear up a little bit moments of reconciliation, or like just people who are learning hard lessons and growing as people. I think they do a really good job of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely moments, usually near the end of the episode, that are not funny. That they are quite serious, and they're communicating something. Like not so much the first episode, but especially like 3 and 4 and a little bit of 5. It's very like, oh, this is not like, I'm not laughing at this point. And it does leave you with like, it is going to be resolved, which is part of the drama of it all and the storytelling, which I like. So it's not just, let's see how many jokes we can fit into 30 minutes. There's definitely storytelling involved, and it gets you different emotions, not just laughter. And so you mentioned the Golden Calf episode, like that is just full of all sorts of emotional baggage. And I think they do a pretty good job of bringing a lot of that out. Like you said, Aaron's perspective, which, how do you go, like you said, how do you go from the guy, Aaron's right-hand man, done all these things, like, yeah, I guess we'll just make a calf. Like, that clearly is not what happened, but that's all the text says.
Right.
They came to Aaron, he said sure, and the calf came out. And yet that obviously, there's obviously more to it. And so their take is, like you said, he feels like he's losing the crowd, and he's feels like he's got to do something. And so what he does is give in. But the episode shows him as struggling with it. It wasn't an immediate give in. It's just kind of like, I got to figure something out. And he was kind of at his wit's end. And so that's what he did.
Yeah. What do you think of the character of Moses? And it's played by Wasim Nomani, not a
household
actor I've
name.
known from anywhere else.
Well, and if anybody's watched The Chosen, he's actually in The Chosen. He actually plays a bad guy in The Chosen. He's one of the, I can't remember his character's name, but he's a Pharisee.
Okay.
And so I recognized him from that. There's a couple of actors, an actor and actress who are actually in The Chosen as well. But it's funny because to see him go from being like the bad guy in The Chosen to Moses it's another one of those, for a moment, it's like this cognitive dissonance. It's like, no, you're a bad guy. And then you just have to let the story take over, and then you get into it.
Yeah. I thought the portrayal was really strong. I think he's a great actor, and he shows a lot of different kinds of emotions. And I feel like they've developed him as being someone who really loves the law. Like, he loves rules.
It's a fright. I love rules.
And then there's this, I don't know if it's from the Star Wars universe, but like when he's in the tent and people are coming to him to make decisions, the first episode is very heavy on Moses is the guy who settles the disputes on behalf of all the tribe people. And that's why Jethro has to come along and say, Moses, what you're doing is not good. Right. But like, after he gives a verdict, he says, I have spoken.
And they all clap.
And they all clap. He's got a little group of people who clap. I've spoken. And somebody's like, I've spoken. Like sometimes he's not sure. I'm giving a verdict. I'm not so sure about this one, but.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is he's not the fully he's not the fully confident Moses we see after the Exodus. That's portrayed in the text. He does give a judgment like, I think we're gonna go this way, and and so I do like that. Again, it humanizes him where he doesn't know how it's all gonna work out. It's like, I got to go up and talk to God. I don't know. We'll see what happens, and comes back. And so, he's their leader, but he doesn't know what he's doing. He's never led a group of, freed slaves across the desert before. And so they portray him as just, he's one of them. It's just God's called him to do this thing.
Yeah, I think in episode 2, it's all about leadership. And so he's delegated everything. And so now he's got all these people working for him, and he's got nothing else to do. It's like he's bored. He's playing soccer with the kids and stuff like that, which doesn't go very well. But Aaron at first is a great leader because everybody loves him and he's making jokes and he's like, yeah, Aaron. Miriam is trying to lead the women, which doesn't go very well at all. Cora has got these 10 guys, which is a smaller number that he should have. And they're all a bunch of losers. Like everybody's like having to learn about leadership. And what Moses feels like is everybody loves Aaron more than me. And it's a lot of hilarity until you get to the end. And then Aaron's like, oh, we've got serious things. They won't listen to me anymore. And Miriam's like, there's this whole problem with me trying to lead the women. And Moses has to step up. And like the lesson is sometimes being a great leader isn't being the one people like. And Moses even has to realize that. It's like, okay, maybe the people don't love you the way they love Aaron because you can't riff on stage like he does. But it turns out you're actually the guy that God chose, and he chose you for a reason. And so I think that they're able to take, a half hour of really funny stuff, but then tie it up at the end with actually there's still a biblical lesson here that we want to wrap this episode up with. And Moses has to learn. It's like parents who are always like, this is the first time I've been the parent of a 6-year-old. Like, I've never done this anymore. Moses is like, I've never led people out of Egypt. Give me a break. This is my first time doing this.
Yeah, I like the character development a lot, and I like how I think it seems like they're setting up things that haven't happened yet. Like Korah is being developed a lot, and he doesn't really show up until later when he leads a rebellion. But now you're kind of getting a backstory, right? But the person I feel like they developed the best and that I laughed the most in her scenes is Miriam.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she just can't take a break. The boys are very chauvinistic to her. Her brothers, the other men, Korah. She has, she has a friend, Moses' wife, Zipporah, who does better than her at everything. And you have a little rivalry there, and you get a sense she just can't catch a break. And I think the height of it, I don't know if you've seen this one, Ron, yet, is when Moses starts a law school.
That's episode 5.
One of the themes here that I think is probably one of its weakest biblical portraits is the assumption that women are property in ancient Israel, which is not true biblically.
Right.
But they really play off of that, and then Miriam keeps getting, she's portrayed as really one of the smartest ones there. She's fully literate. She's musically gifted. She's wicked smart, and when her and Zipporah, maybe a little spoiler alert here, but they're not allowed to join the law school because they're women. It's a men's only thing. Right. And they're like, but we have to leave the women. We need to know the law too. So they dress up as men. She is hysterical. Have you watched this one yet?
It's very good.
She is hilarious as a man. You have they're just imitating male mannerisms and how they
she's manspreading.
And saying I gotta take up space and more space, and so you have a woman's view of how men assert their maleness that are being portrayed by these two women, and her character. But you see how this is setting up to me. Later on in the story, we're going to get where there are several people who are at fault, but Miriam is the one who catches leprosy. It's well, why not Aaron? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's just it's like they're developing that.
Right.
That one little, we don't know a lot about Miriam, but we know one thing later on, and they've used that to build up the whole character up until this point. And you want to get to that scene to see how that happens, and you just know the look on her face is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
She looks with disdain a lot. Everything she says, they ignore her, and then they say the exact same thing, and everyone loves it. She's like, I literally just said that. It's great. She is a great character, and like you said, they definitely play up the property, second-class citizen idea, in order to make some of the jokes and so forth. But at the same time, the women typically win. They wanted to build a separate shelter, and Korah put up a fight. Nope, this is what we're doing. And he kind of was like, okay, I guess we have to, And so yes, they frame it as a certain way, but in reality, it plays out differently.
Yeah, I feel this is one of the takeaways that is going to be the worst from it. There's already people who think the Old Testament has a low view of women, when read contextually, it actually does not.
Right.
And so, this series has a high view of women, It's trying to elevate women, make us sympathetic to the kind of plight that they used to have to face in ancient patriarchal societies. And but they're definitely leaving the impression that the Old Testament on its own is women are property,
Right.
and that was, you would leave this with that impression, and I think that's an unfortunate development in how they went about this. They're not redeeming the Bible's portrait of women. It's kind of like they have a higher portrait of women than the Bible does,
Yeah.
and that's unfortunate.
Well, and that's where you don't want to take the show as if it's portraying the actual Bible story. You know, part of it is humor. Recognize that a lot of it is caricature. You know, caricatures always exaggerate features to create humor, and so don't assume that this is how the Bible views women. For me, it's the most uncomfortable part of the show because I just feel so bad for Miriam, especially. You know, like Zipporah, she's just like, everything's great. Like, no matter what happens, she's like, this is just so great. And
She's
so
like Aaron; everyone loves her.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, there's a comparison between the two. Yeah.
right. And so, you know, even when people are treating women bad, it's like she's oblivious, like she just doesn't care. And Miriam has to carry the weight of that. And there are times when I'm uncomfortable watching it because I feel so bad for her. You know, it's almost like they've leaned in it a little bit too much for my comfort. But maybe that's the whole point, you know. And there is definitely some humor, but I feel so bad for Miriam at times.
And I think they pull out of that the deeper you get into the series. I like by the time you get to episode 5, like, yeah, everyone's on Team Miriam. Like she just develops into a strong character. It's less being stamped on, and more being subversive and getting some wins and stuff like that. I don't want to give any spoiler alerts, but yeah, I felt that discomfort pretty heavy early on to it, and this is an area where I feel like that lightens up over time. So, do you guys have a favorite, I don't know, scene or character or something you want to highlight we haven't talked about yet that you think's a really cool feature of the story here?
Well, I think there's 2 other characters that I really love, which I mean, again, I like all the characters. We mentioned Joshua, but Joshua as a butt kisser kiss up
Yes.
is hilarious.
Oh my goodness!
Like, we just assume he was a servant of Moses' right-hand man, his aide, and he was forced to do that and eventually became, but this is like, he's trying desperately to get Moses' approval. And early on, Moses is like, would you leave me alone? Get out of here, dude. And that's why he got put on mountain watching duty, because like anything to get him out of my sight. And I think that's just a hilarious portrayal of Joshua.
Yes, and yeah, Moses' interaction with him is so hysterical.
That's really hard because I like all the characters, and they're just like great storylines going. I don't know, Korah just makes me laugh because like Korah's like in the Bible, he is, he leads a rebellion, gets swallowed up by the earth and all that kind of stuff. I'm looking at him where he's so excited to be leading a group of people. He only gets 10 idiots.
I mean, he thinks he should be leading the whole people like
Correct.
Moses. Like he's
Yeah.
a better Moses than Moses.
Right. And it does. You can see how he's eventually going to become this bitter, rival. And so now it's almost like, yeah, because he got, scored at this early time. What's really funny about it, the 10 guys that he has to lead, is one of them is the Egyptian.
Oh, Chisisi.
Yeah.
I was going to get to him.
Okay, so I'll leave that to
Do
you.
you mind if I pivot to that? Or?
Not at all.
So yeah, there's this character who is not in the Bible, who is a great part of the plot.
Yes.
And that is, after the Exodus event, apparently there is an Egyptian that washes up on the Israelite side of the Red Sea.
Alive, to be clear.
Alive. And so he's chosen to blend in with the Israelite people.
Right.
And he's a very funny character. And he just doesn't know their traditions. He doesn't know, he's an Egyptian,
Yeah.
right? And so he has this, like, no one really suspects him except Korah. Korah suspects that this guy doesn't belong. And Korah, he's following up on these suspicions by trying to, like, test Chisisi, right? To kind of like, hey, what is your name? And he's got to like answer that question. Like he's got to come up with a Hebrew name. And so he has to challenge that. Or, hey, which tribe are you a part of? And he has a funny comeback to what tribe. And, hey, what part of the camp? Let me go there with you. And Korra keeps setting these traps, and Jasisi keeps evading them one at a time, and he becomes one of the most hysterical characters. And it's totally outside the biblical story. Although, frankly, in the Bible story, you have some Egyptians choose to come with the Israelites, and they're welcome as Egyptians. That seems to be absent from the plot. Like Jasisi doesn't know that there are other Egyptians there, and he can just say, "Yeah, I'm the ones that chose to," instead of saying, "I'm the ones who were chasing you into the sea and wanted to kill you." But he's a fascinating addition to the story and leads to so many comical moments.
Well, and he's so he's overly enthusiastic about everything because he doesn't want to get caught. He's like trying to protect his identity by just throwing himself into it. I'm like, this is great. Yes, this is so great. You know, when Korra's trying to get his 10 guys, nobody's more enthusiastic than Tasisi is his name. Yeah.
Jasisi, yeah.
And so to see the lengths he's willing to go to blend in. And I can't remember, it's been a while since I saw the first episode. Did he go, I can't get back to Egypt. Like, I washed up on the shore and I can't go home. If they find out who I am, I'm going to die or something like that. I got to blend into these people.
Yeah, so there is a brief little backstory of how he washed up. And
so everything's just over the top.
He stole it. So there's like an Israelite bathing, so he stole his clothes so he could not have the Egyptian garb on. It's a funny little flashback. Yeah.
Yeah. In the more recent episode, he tries to send messages. He tries to train quails to send a message to the Egyptians to let them know he's okay.
Yeah.
What does he call the quail?
Quailopatra.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. And so I think, I don't know if it's my favorite scene, but when I think of when you talk about Jasisi is when, and this is again very anachronistic, where he's bringing thread to the women to help with creating the tabernacle. And like they have all these sorts of questions about their relationships with their husbands or fiancés and things. And he becomes like the love doctor who and he makes up a whole story about how he lost his wife and his kids and they all feel bad for him. And he's just sharing, like, it's just hilarious. He becomes one of the gals, for that episode. It's just a really good thing.
And what's funny, it's partly setting that up when everyone's collecting supplies to give toward the tabernacle, and Korra, since he's kind of the head of the little 10-man troop that Jasisi is part of, he it's like, well, you're going to give more than most people, right? Like we are the 10, but we're the mighty 10. He has them doing like calisthenics, and if he's only going to have 10, they're going to be the best 10.
They're the Navy SEALs of the of the Hebrews.
But Jasisi doesn't have anything with him because he didn't fleece the Egyptians on his way out. He came as a soldier and washed up, naked pretty much, or in Egyptian garden, had to make himself naked. But anyway, all he had was this fabric, and so when he's asked for his name, right? And he's like, well, I'd rather remain anonymous, right? Someone else is taking inventory and like, let's keep my name a secret. So he's playing kind of humble and like, hey, the Egyptian word for secret is Jasisi. Let me just go by Jasisi as my nickname. And so all the women know him by Jasisi,
which is his
nickname, which is an Egyptian name, which is actually his real name. And so, they have so much fun with it.
They do.
I agree.
Other scenes that stand out.
Well, it only stands out to me because I'm hopefully going to be preaching in chapel at some point on a particular passage, and so at the law school, it was brought up, and I don't know. It's kind of so it's when two women are fighting, two men are fighting, and one of the women comes and grabs the genitals of one of the men, like hand must be cut off, and like, oh, I'm actually going to try to preach on that passage in chapel, and then Korra goes, he makes fun of another guy. I forget what he said exactly. It was something like, if you can find it. And he's like trying to emasculate this other guy next to him.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It was just funny. I know it's my child boy humor, but it was funny.
Adolescent humor is still a part of who we are, no matter how old we are.
And it works its way into the story a little bit. And I love, there's so much great in that scene, and part of what's a theme of that episode is Moses is going to have to get over his disdain for Aaron for the whole golden calf incident.
Oh,
And he just has a string of jokes about Aaron never missing a golden opportunity.
Yeah.
And like, he's just like throwing him under the bus, line after line after line. And then he has to teach, on never doing avenge and degrading your brother and stuff like this, and like wrestle with what Torah says about that,
Right.
and what his own behavior is.
for a guy who really loves rules, these rules are going to come back and bite him pretty hard. I haven't. See, I'm a little bit behind. I wanted to get enough of it in to where I could talk intelligently about it, but I'm not. I haven't watched quite as far as you guys, so I'm still stuck in like episode 3. But I still think about Joshua trying to guard the mountain. I just think that is so hilarious because you keep having a goat who tries to go up the mountain and he has to shoo it away, and eventually the goat gets past him. But the idea of like having to kill people, it's like if anybody touches the mountain, you got to kill them. He's like, I do. Like it makes him take the job seriously. But now it's like when the kids are like playing soccer and their ball goes up the mountain, and he's like, if you go after that ball, I'm going to kill you. And the kids are all like looking at each other like, seriously, dude, it's just a ball. I think Moses will be okay with it if I just go get my ball. And he's like, no. I will kill you if you try to go up the mountain. And eventually he like falls asleep as he's guarding the mountain, and they sneak up to him. They get the ball back. They, I think they like punch him and stuff like that.
Steal his bow and arrow.
Yeah, exactly. But that's when we find out who Caleb is.
Yeah.
Like he's the kid who comes back and he gives him his bow back. It's like, hey, I guess we shouldn't have done that to you. But watching him trying to guard the mountain is just, to me, it's fantastic. I almost feel like that would have been me. I think I'd have taken the job a little bit too seriously and probably would have had to face the abuse of my friends and family because, hey, it's my job. I got to do it.
Yeah. Another unexpected episode has to do with it. A lot of it revolves around the bones of Joseph, which is just such a minor. I mean, it's not even really part of the Exodus story in Numbers, but you have it from Genesis, right? Like Joseph wants his bones to be brought up, and they do. We know they do carry his bones up out of Egypt, and there's a whole episode where Aaron, when Moses is up the mountain, and Aaron. Moses leads him kind of like with a to-do list of like, and make sure you take care of Joseph's bones. And they build a whole plot line of Aaron doesn't know where the bones are. And there could be anywhere between the camp and the Red Sea. And this whole search, and he's too prideful to like ask for help, except for his closest buddies, and they end up just building a wonderful storyline out of very little in the actual Bible storyline. But it's there, and it reminds you of, this was part of their life. Like while all these things are happening, the battle with the Amalekites, God's given the laws. Somewhere is a box with Joseph's bones in it. They're just part of the story.
Yeah.
And so does he like pull his buddies aside? He's like, guys, I got to confess. I don't know where the bone box is. Like this.
Oh yeah, that's part of the conversation.
Yeah.
He's got to enlist their help to try to find him.
I can see them like going back to the Red Sea. It's like got torches at night. It's like, did we walk through here? Are you sure we're in the right spot?
So the funniest thing I don't know what to do with, or there's a plot line in there. I don't know where it's coming from or where it's going, but like Moses' sons.
Yeah. You keep referencing them, and they're never there. Like, oh, I just saw them, and we've not actually seen them in the show yet.
Yeah,
So
we're
we're
five
to six
episodes in, and the sons show up in the story, and they're talked about in the very first episode. There's like one reference to them every episode at least.
Yep.
And it's just like, oh, where are the boys? Oh yeah, they were just here. Did you see them? It's like, what are they doing there?
Yeah, I don't
I have
know.
no idea what's happening there. Are they really there? Do they have reason to think maybe they never came? Or are they developing something? I don't know where it's going.
I thought the same thing. Like, am I forgetting something about the story? Like this little tidbit that they're like utilizing? I don't know. Are they implying that he didn't actually have any sons? That I don't know where it's going, but I'll be interested when it actually comes about.
Maybe the sons are going to be like Norm's wife, like in Cheers, how they always talk about his wife, but you never see her.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's the sons.
Okay.
Or like
right.
the TV show Frasier, it was Niles' wife. Like they talk about her all the time, but you never see her. And that became like the trope. So maybe that's the sons. They're going to be, Cliff's wife. You always talk about them and they play a major role, but you never get to see their face.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they're doing. I didn't realize that was a trope in other shows, and this may be their way of kind of spinning off of that trope. That's interesting. I mean, there's still one more episode for this season. I mean, episode 6 is released today, and so we don't know whether the sun thing will be developed any further in this episode, or we have to wait for another season.
Right.
But it's the thing that I think I understand almost everything they're doing and why. That's like the one thing where I'm just baffled, and I think that's on purpose.
Yep. So we talked a lot about what's great about it. Any things we mentioned the one about the sort of the way in which they portray women, but any other things you're like, I don't love that. Anything?
Nothing stands out to me. I think that, like when it's been over a year ago when they first started talking about it, I'm like, oh, I got to check this out. And there's a degree to which when you bring humor in, it can be a little bit irreverent. We're talking about like Moses and Aaron and stuff like that. They're these great heroes from the Bible, important figures from Israel's history, and to turn them into funny characters. All these guys, Joshua, Korah, like to see humor in them. I think that sometimes people can go, that's too irreverent. You're treading on sacred ground. I understand that. I think that I'm such an irreverent guy that I just lean into it pretty heavily. And so I'm, apart from being a little bit uncomfortable at times with the way women are portrayed in their relationships, I think overall I've just enjoyed what I've seen. I can't wait to get through, season 1 because it's just so much fun. And as a Bible scholar, I'm not seeing anything that I'm like, I'm not offended by it. And some of it is anachronistic, but I'm okay with it. It's not like they're trying to tell us the Bible story in a, historically accurate way. They're having fun with it, but they're also, as we've already pointed out, they're ending episodes with a more serious lesson. It's like in this hilarious stuff that we've been doing, there's still an important lesson that we're taking out of it. And I think that's really clever writing. Like you have to really think, how can we make this funny and then wrap up each episode with a more serious application of that. And so I give a lot of credit to the writers and the actors, the director to be able to pull that off. Yeah, I can't really point to anything that I don't like at this point.
Yeah, I'm in a similar place, and for me, again, it's not the way the producer and director and writer portrays women. It's the way they portray the Bible portraying women.
Yeah,
that is the one part that I just don't like. And again, it doesn't fill everything. It's not all over the place.
Right.
But when it's there and they just say it so matter-of-factly as if it's true, that does bug me. Honestly, there's nothing else that I have a problem with. I mean, they don't develop the character of God at all. I mean, that's just a vacuum, and maybe they will later on. But he's very much a distant, underdeveloped character in the story. So that's something that is the least developed. And maybe that's fine. I mean, what they're trying to do is portray the humanity of the actors, and most of them must have had this distance from God. So that's maybe a theme that's underdeveloped. I don't know. What about you, Sam?
I agree with, I think all that. I don't know about the tablets because in my perspective, like when he comes down with the tablets from Sinai, what's on the tablets? Right? That's always, for me, it's a debate. And so a lot of times it's portrayed as 5 commandments on one and 5 on another. Well, that doesn't make any sense because there's 2 copies. And so it should be the same stuff on both tablets. And is it the 10 commandments or is it all the laws? So it's like, that's the thing when he goes to the law school, he's reading the tablet, the normal, like the other laws, like the covenant code and so forth. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think we know what was on the tablets. And so I see little things like that, like, maybe not, who knows? But that's all. It's a silly little thing.
There's a lot of writing, and maybe this is where it's a little bit not quite historical. Like everyone, like in a law school, like everyone's writing.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of literacy. And yeah, Moses has a lot of copies. And it seemed like the 10 Commandments were kind of unique, that the rest of the law was orally.
Right.
There's no sense that it was written.
Correct.
Like in Scripture itself.
Yeah, that's my perspective. The 10 Commandments were on the tablets, and the others were orally passed down, like we talked about. At least that's how it's perceived. So either way, like that's just one of those things to quibble. But they got to do something because what else is Mose doing? I mean, it could be funny, like, oh yeah, and he also said this. Like they could have done that with him just doing it just with recall without anything in front of him, maybe. But
I always thought about the 10 Commandments themselves. They got strikingly little emphasis. Like that.
Yeah, we make a big deal out of them, but in the text, there's not as big a deal.
Yeah, and in the portrayal of it, it's not a big deal. Like the 10 are not emphasized a lot. It's like, there's like a passing reference to there's a lot of laws, but there are like 10 that really stand out or something like that. There's like a passing reference, and that's it. And law school is all about these other rules strewn, just drawn randomly from within Torah.
Right.
So I was surprised. But there's certain obvious storylines you would expect to be developed and are, always hyper developed in ordinary portrayals of these stories that don't get mentioned.
Yeah.
And then elements that never get mentioned, they really develop. And I loved the opening scene, the battle against the Amalekites. When Moses' hands are in the air, they're winning, and when they're down, they're losing. And they really develop the whole theme of what happens when lactic acid builds up in your arms and and how he needs help, but without using any scientific language like that. Right. It's just a compelling opening scene that's very funny. And of course you have Aaron, this little aside to the camera, like sometimes he has optimism, sometimes he thinks we're all going to die in this desert.
Yeah.
Great line. So, all right.
Well, I'll just say, highly recommended if you get a chance. I think you can watch it with your family. I don't think anything overly objectionable for a younger audience, but they might not get a lot of the humor because it is an adult show, but it's great. Highly recommended. Hopefully it gets picked up, and if nothing else, it'll remind you of the storyline from about chapter 16 to, I don't know, we're about 32, 34 by the time the first season ends, so...
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the After Class podcast. After Class because
the best conversations happen
after class.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of the After Class podcast. ACP is hosted by Sam Long, John Nugent, and Ron Peters. Social media pictures and descriptions are provided by Darren Harris. Audio mixing and editing is done by Drew Nyquist. If you've enjoyed this episode of ACP, you might also enjoy GLCC's Master of Arts in Practical Theology degree. In this 36-hour program, you will receive first-rate biblical and theological instruction from John, Ron, Sam, and several of their colleagues at Great Lakes Christian College. To learn more about this program, visit glcc.edu. Get practical and go deep at GLCC.